In life, we all encounter obstacles, and those obstacles come in all different shapes, sizes, and forms. The question is, how do we handle those obstacles? Do we attack them head on, or do we allow them to make us quit? Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to motivate and inspire listeners to never give up on themselves, their dreams, or their goals. We will interview successful people from all walks of life as they share their no-quit stories when they had the choice to give up or give in, but they didn't. We thank you for listening, and we hope to be that jolt of positivity as you go for your greatness. Welcome to episode number 113 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is authenticity. Our quote of the day comes to us from Craig Groeschel. Be yourself. Authenticity trumps cool every time. It is an honor to bring you today's episode. Our guest, Stephynie Malik, is an incredibly successful woman and had a lot of fun with this interview. We spoke offline for quite some time, and when it comes to being authentic and adding value, she definitely gets it. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Stephynie, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you spending some time with us. So the first question we ask everybody is, are you ready to bring it today?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So the number one objective of our show is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never give up. And I was curious if you had either a story of perseverance or a challenging time that really tested you and you had the opportunity to give up or give in, but you didn't and you kept on going.
Yes, I would say I've had several of those, but if I try and keep it to one, I would say I had a little bit of a challenging childhood. First and foremost, I was born into a family that was a single parent family. My mom and dad had gotten a divorce when I was very, very young. My father lived very close to me. My mother, when I was very young, was diagnosed with a significant mental illness and actually never, ever took medication. So it was filled with strife and contention and a lot of verbal and physical abuse. Shortly, maybe 2 or 3 years later, after I was born, my brother was born from a different father. Again, very abusive, very volatile, chaotic. She never really took medicine. It was very challenging getting through school and trying to have normal, childhood relationships like any child would like to have. When I was 15, I was on my way home from summer school one day. And I accidentally found out that my father was actually not my father. So that was quite challenging because that would mean my brothers and sisters were not my brothers and sisters, and my nationality wasn't my nationality. And it really kind of just set off an extremely deep depression and a long bat of acting out. So I found out who my father was. And sadly, after I found out who my father was, I found out that he had died in a boating accident when I was 3 years old.
Well, that is a tough upbringing, and definitely can't say that I know what you were going through or went through. So I guess a question for you is, from that point up until now, is how did you continue to go? And obviously, learning about that and finding that you could have gone in a lot of different directions. What kept you focused and positively moving forward to where you are today?
I think what initially motivated me was to make sure I was nothing like the people around me that had raised me. I think I really, really wanted to be different. And then as I got older and I looked at the overall environment, I was raised in a very challenging socioeconomic environment. With very, very poor schools and extremely poor resources, if you will. And I really, really just didn't want that in my life. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to have an impact. Even though I wasn't sure about what I was going to do, what I did know for certain is I didn't want, 2 or 3 or 4 kids with 2 or 3 or 4 different fathers. I didn't want a GED. I actually wanted to get out of school. I didn't want to live in the same environment that I had been raised in. I really wanted something much different, much more peaceful, less chaotic, and more impactful for my life and for my future family.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, and I think we've shared and we've had some amazing guests that all have different stories, and the best part is none of them are similar, the same, or identical. But what happens is people that have a tough challenge they overcome or a tough no-quit story is you have one of two options. Is you can continue to go down the same road, or you could look at it and approach it the way you did, is you wanted to have things differently. So I appreciate not only you sharing that story with us, but I commend you for having the courage to go ahead and actually make a change. So I wanted to ask, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and the amazing things you're doing today.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So I just launched a new firm. The firm currently is called Chique Speak, and that's CHIQUE Speak, SPEAK.com. We're going to be actually rebranding at the end of the month, and it's just going to be Stephynie.com, which is, my name's spelled a little differently. So it's going to be Stephynie, STEPHYNIE.com. And what we're doing is we're doing executive coaching and entrepreneur coaching. And it's very similar to performance coaching. And how I got into this was I started a technology consulting firm about 16 and a half years ago. And I was able to grow the firm very rapidly and very successfully. So the name of the firm is called Malico, and Malico is essentially a baby integrator, so a systems integrator. We integrate software as well as providing skills, consultants, and contractors to large corporations such as Nike, American Express, Motorola, Coach, etc. And I built the business from nothing. $1,000 and a laptop. And in the first quarter, we billed about $2.3 million, all around services. And how we did that, Chris, is listening to our clients. So we essentially would go in with no deck, with no pitch, and we would actually find out where their largest pain points are, find out what was keeping them up at night, find out what was happening with their teams, and just kind of really understand what the whole problem was. Not just the software wasn't working or not usability, but really what the entire problem was. And so we were able to really do a great job in marrying consultants with very, very large firms with real business problems and create amazing solutions. So as I was doing that, I started realizing my niche really is so much human consulting and people consulting opposed to technology consulting. And so I was able to get the business very profitable. We built it into a multi-million-dollar firm in 28 countries with a 99% client satisfaction rate. And I was able to leave in November as chairman, remain as chairman and start my new firm, which is completely around focusing entrepreneurs on their specific detailed skill or knowledge, expertise, and getting them to build sustainable, successful, profitable businesses, either within their own technology market or service market or globally.
It doesn't sound like you do enough things, so I think you should try to do some more things along the way. I really don't think you do enough. No, I'm just kidding. I think that's amazing, and I think just a couple of takeaways which are really incredible is you said the concept of listening and finding your clients or potential clients' pain points. And I think that's just so amazing because I think in the world of business, and especially with sales, there's so many people that are pitching other companies or entities or clients or prospects. They have their needs. So, for example, if I was trying to close you as a client, I'm thinking about the sale, I'm thinking about the commission, I'm thinking about getting you as a client, as opposed to where I think obviously you've been successful and why you're going to be incredibly successful moving forward is you need to find those pain points. Because if I say to you, you do this really well, let me help you do it a teeny bit better, that's probably not going to be really successful. But if I say, you do this really well, I think where I can help is you're deficient in these two areas. Let me see if we can help by listening and figuring exactly out what you need and taking those things to a higher level. So I really commend you for doing that. And obviously you've had some amazing success. So speaking of success, I wanted to ask you, how do you personally define success?
That's a great question. I often call this my happiness or my success model. And it's three things. It's freedom, financial gain, and contribution. The reason why I call that my success formula, Chris, is because I've taken on so many clients that have two out of the three, whatever they happen to be, and they're missing feeling fulfilled or successful or happy. They're missing something. Multi-millionaires who are able to work on a yacht in Greece and they're still feeling like they're lacking, or volunteer workers who are bringing water into villages in Africa and sleeping on someone's couch, but are still being able to travel. They're missing the financial aspect of being able to have the stability of that. So the three things that you really, truly need for me in my head is freedom, financial gain, and being able to contribute.
That's awesome. And I think the best part about asking that question is it leads to so many different things. So I appreciate. So just wanted to just ask you, how did you define those three things? And if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little snippet, has that always been those three main things for you, or have they changed over the years?
Well, actually, I didn't even know there were three things. What happened was very young and kind of growing up in Silicon Valley and being, handed positions at a very young age. I was the youngest director for a public company in Silicon Valley back when the company was public in probably 40 years of history. So I was very young. I was reporting to a board. I had a ton of responsibility. I had, a very young child. I was a single mother. And it was really, really crazy, but I couldn't figure it out because I wasn't worried about bills. I had enough money. My bills were paid off. I had great credit. And I volunteered and I gave back. But I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. And I couldn't figure it out. And I met with a mentor, and the mentor said, well, yeah, of course, because you're chained to your desk. You're chained to your office. You have to be there at set hours, at set times. You have, set vacation. If you go anywhere or your daughter needs anything, you have to put in for the time. And I was like, oh yeah, that actually makes sense. I don't really have a lot of freedom. And then, a few years go by and I had all of the freedom under the sun and I can go and come as I please. And I'm still making plenty of money and I was doing a great job, but I wasn't contributing. I was getting nothing back. I mean, I was a great mom and I made all of her events and she was, the highlight of my life. But still, I wasn't giving back to anyone. I was barely making it to any outside family events, and getting to weddings or, even funerals, sadly, were a struggle. So I wasn't really contributing anything. And then lastly, when I had lost my job during a lot of the economic downturn in Silicon Valley, and I had no money and I was able to contribute because I had so much time on my hands, and I had all the freedom that I wanted, I wasn't happy. That stable piece was missing. And so I kind of started writing these things down and kind of making it into columns and going, hey, when was I really the happiest? And I was really the happiest and most fulfilled and just really passionate about life when I was actually having all three of those things involved in my life. And I started taking polls with my clients and asking them, where they were. And after a lot of research and hundreds of clients, the clients that were missing one of those three things weren't happy. The people who had all of those three things were well on their way to defining, this has made me happy. Now I need to grow each one of those segments, if you will.
No, I appreciate you going into that a little bit because I think it just expands a little bit what you said before. And I think it's a question that a lot of people don't ask is, when am I the happiest, or when do I feel the most fulfilled? And it's just really interesting when you ask yourself that. And obviously you have asked yourself that in different ways, and you obviously ask your clients what you do well, and having a 99% satisfaction rate, that speaks for itself. So if you had, Stephynie, to define yourself in only one word, what would that word be?
Oh, wow. Authentic.
That's a great word, and having only known you for a short period of time, I can definitely say that word fits you pretty well. So one of the topics we often discuss is personal development, and we're always looking to add value to our listeners. And I was curious if you have either a morning or a daily ritual that you swear by.
Chris, I do. And I have to tell you, I change it often. I change it when I'm lacking in certain areas, and I add to it, and I kind of delete from it. But I do change it. I think part of the thing about a morning routine is I think that you have to see what you're needing in your life, and really sticking to it to, 45 to 60 days and seeing how it works for you, and then switching it up. It's almost like making a recipe yours. So you get this fabulous recipe, and then, maybe your wife is lactose intolerant, or your child, is diabetic, and you kind of switch it up and add different things to it to make it your own. And that's really what I've done. So my routine is fairly simple. I wake up, I beat the sun up every morning. I pray or meditate depending on what's going on in my life. One of the biggest things I do, Chris, is I set my intention for the day. So that means, for example, today my intention was connection. And I actively try to connect with 10 people via email, via text, or a phone call that have meant something to me. So I've been traveling so much, and I've been on so many different, radio shows or interviews. I haven't had a lot of time to nurture those people that have been there for me. So today, my intention was connection. After I set my intention, I watch a video or I do a reading around my intention. So this morning it was Robin Sharma, and I just typed in Robin Sharma and connection, and 4 or 5 videos come up, and they're 2 to 5 minutes, and I watch a video or two, and it really kind of helps solidify my intention. And then I do a 5-minute morning stretch and get up and make coffee.
So I didn't get my email or phone call, so I assume I'll get mine tomorrow then.
You will be on that list tomorrow.
All right, I'm going to hold you to that. So here's an interesting question for you. Assuming the 20-year-old version of yourself would have listened, what is the one piece of advice you would give to the 20-year-old Stephynie?
One piece. You're killing me, Chris, with these one. I get one. I think if you said one, I would say don't waste time. That's what I would say. And I mean that with, there are so many things in this world that you can buy. You cannot buy integrity, and you cannot buy time.
I love that. I think it's so true in so many ways. And one of the things we talk about in our financial companies, we do a lot of workshops and seminars for the public, is we talk about time and money. And money is something that you can change, earn more, move, lose, tweak, improve. But time, on the other hand, you can't change it. You can't add it. So I think that's awesome as far as how you do that. And I think people, I know people have certain regrets in life. I try to have 0 regrets, and the reason being is I think everywhere I've been or everyone I've connected with has led me to where I am. But definitely, if I go back to my 20-year-old self, there would be many, many times where I'd say, don't waste time. And maybe an asterisk for me would have been, don't waste as much time. Enjoy some things, try some things, but maybe don't waste as much time.
Right. And honestly, Chris, that's exactly right. Don't waste as much time. And those people that are reaching out to you to connect, those older ones, or those ones that are not so fun or not so popular, or maybe it wasn't a party, but maybe it was a family get together. I really, my daughter asked me a couple days ago, Mom, do you have any regrets? That's really my regret. My regret is I look back on how many people wanted to deeply connect with me, older ones, maybe my grandparents who fled to this country, maybe their friends that were in from another country, and they wanted to connect. And it was a Friday night at 8:00, and I was just hoping to see my friends. And who those friends are now, I couldn't even tell you. So you're right in choosing who you connect with and having a lot of fun and settling down with those people.
So if you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I think it would be my dad. I think I would, I don't remember him at all. And although there's people that say that, that we met and he spent a small amount of time with me, I didn't know him and I don't remember him. And he was only 30 when he passed away. And so I think it would be my dad.
No, that's awesome. And I think it's interesting because a lot of people have personal connections, famous connections, but I think to your point, it would be a really interesting dinner and a special dinner for you. So I appreciate you being completely candid with us. So one of the things we often talk about on our show are different quotes, and we use quotes of the day in our introductions. And I was curious if you have a favorite quote yourself.
Oh gosh, you know, I don't. I mean, what I say a lot is, if you set vague goals, your results will always be vague. I don't know that it's somebody's famous quote. It's just a quote that I happen to say often. If you set vague goals, your results will always be vague. The other thing I say is step up, commit, and start. But I don't really think I have any famous ones. There's just way too many to quote.
No, that was some pretty good advice, though. So speaking of, that was a good quote. Speaking of advice, I was curious if there was one piece of advice in your life that you've received that you would say that that's the best advice you've ever received.
Shut up and listen.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Shut up and listen.
That was too easy, I'm sorry. So I was curious, one of the things we talk about often is the word mentor, and I think a lot of people transfer a mentor for a coach or a manager, and I was curious if you had a mentor in your life that has been significant to you, or possibly you mentor others.
So to answer that question as succinctly as possible, because that's an entire other show, which I'm absolutely happy to do with you, Chris. But I think mentors are, I have had several mentors, and they've been at several stages of my life. So they've come and they've appeared in different aspects. Raising children, starting my first company, being on a first deal team, an acquisition team of over $100 million. There's so many people that have been instrumental in my life. That being said, yes, I do mentor probably I would say 5 to 7 people at all times for many different things. Mostly it's entrepreneurship, although I am mentoring outside of business. I am mentoring a couple of female executives that are rebranding themselves and actually going to be starting new careers.
No, that's awesome. And it's interesting that you touch on that, because I think so many of our guests have had mentors along the way, significant ones that play a long role, short, maybe a year or two. But the interesting component is that so many of our successful guests mentor others continually. And I think that's great, because to me, I don't talk about politics or religion on the show because you can kind of go down some slippery slopes. But for me, we talk about karma and paying it forward. And I love the fact that you're continually working with 5 to 7 people at different times, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of really how I started Chique Speak. Was I wanted to formalize the executive coaching and the entrepreneur coaching. I really, really wanted to be able to move people and kind of get them out of their own way and teach them how to launch very successful businesses. Or, a lot of the clients that we have within our company have maybe been in business for 2 or 3 years and their revenue is flat and they can't figure out what they're doing. So overall, I just love solutioning people and working on, people's emotional EQ and what they need to do to grow their business.
No, that's awesome. And I think why you do what you do and what you do is really interesting. And obviously you've been successful. So I wanted to change lanes here, if it's okay with you, to what we call our hot seat questions. And the only rule, very simple, is you just spit out the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay, let's do it.
Awesome. So if you had one last meal and you could choose absolutely anything for your last meal, what would you choose?
Oh, gosh. I would say homemade pasta with arrabbiata sauce.
That was very specific. I like it. Favorite sport?
To play or to watch?
Your choice.
Lacrosse.
Do you have a favorite all-time team?
No. My son. How's that?
That very good answer. Favorite movie?
Bridges of Madison County.
Do you have an all-time favorite book?
Atlas Shrugged.
Favorite smell?
Ooh. Okay, again, specific. I'm going to say vanilla.
All right. Favorite singer or band?
No, I love music and all types of music.
So no, not one specific?
Andre Bocelli.
Got to ask, are you a fan of Dave Matthews Band at all?
Yes.
All right.
Love.
All right, you get one extra credit point for that. Now, if you were in a foxhole and you could only choose one person to have your back, who would it be?
Oh, gosh, who would it be? I would say, so I can't choose my kids because there's 4 of them. So I'm going to say my best friend, Lisa.
That's awesome. That wasn't too difficult, right?
No.
All right, so before we let you go, Stephynie, I want to ask if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners.
Well, I just wanted to tell you really thank you for allowing me to be on the show and be able to guest with you. It's just been so much fun. I would say really my parting words would be show up, add value anonymously if you can because you want to, not because you're going to get credit for it. Align with like-minded people, always act in integrity, follow up and follow through no matter what.
That's some very, very good advice. And last question, I promise it's the easiest one, is what's the best way for our listeners to connect, follow you, or if they're interested in finding out a little bit more about you and all that you do?
Great. So they can follow us on Twitter, which is Twitter, chiquespeak.com. Website, both of the brands are going to be under Stephynie.com, and it's STEPHYNIE.com. We also have a Facebook group called the Success Hub at Facebook that they can join there. And Chris, we actually created a special offer for your listeners. And so if they wanted to see the special offer, they would just go to Stephynie.com/Chris.
That's the best website I've ever heard.
All for you.
Well, listen, Stephynie, I cannot thank you enough for not only your time, but your candor, and some of your parting words were some of the most basic things, and I mean that in the best way, because the reason you've been successful is you practice what you preach, and it's been awesome, and I truly appreciate you being a guest with us today.
It's been an honor, Chris. Thank you again.
Thank you for listening to episode number 113. Stephynie is quite an impressive woman, and I hope you were able to receive as much as I did from today's show. When Stephynie spoke about her morning ritual, it was very unique, as she mentioned that she changes her morning ritual often. However, she did mention that every single day she beats the sun up and she sets her intention for the day. Having spoken to her many times since our recording, I can definitely vouch that she practices what she preaches, and she does set her intentions every single day. I also found it very refreshing that Stephynie gives back in her own way by mentoring 5 to 7 people at all times. For someone that has achieved her level of success, it is great to see her continuing to help others. One thing she mentioned that I love was how if you set vague goals, your results will be vague. Such great advice and insight. Stephanie's closing remarks were on point. She told us to show up, add value, and to add value anonymously. She also pointed out the importance of connecting with like-minded people. It reminds me of one of Jim Rohn's most famous quotes: "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." So my question to you today is just that. Who are the 5 people in your life that you spend the most time with? And do those 5 people keep you where you are? Do they bring you down? Or are they motivating you to improve and become your very best? My challenge to you today is something that we've discussed on many different shows. Today, this morning, this afternoon, or even this evening, look to add value to someone else. Add that value 100% anonymously. Don't look for or expect any credit. Just do it because it's the right thing to do. Do for somebody else and go for your greatness. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.